Managing money effectively isn't just about the numbers, it's also about fostering a healthy emotional relationship with our finances. I have found that sinking funds are an effective tool for managing my financial well-being. They help us plan for future expenses, they reduce financial stress, and through this all, we avoid unnecessary debt. By setting aside money regularly for specific costs we anticipate, we feel more in control of our finances and better prepared for life's unexpected costs. This approach not only provides a clear financial roadmap, but also promotes peace of mind and confidence in our financial futures. So today I'll discuss why a sinking fund is good for emotional financial security, and I'll give tips on how to create and manage a sinking fund. By the way, my name is Carly. I used to work in tech, and now I focus on modeling and creating videos. On this channel, I share videos around personal finance. I talk about my experiences in the modeling industry, and I also share videos on living intentionally. So if you're interested in any of these types of videos, please like and subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. A sinking fund originally came about in the context of government finances when the sinking fund would be created by the government to manage public debt. The funds would be established to reduce the national debt by gradually accumulating money to pay off bonds issued by the government. Nowadays, when it comes to the application of personal finance, a sinking fund is a savings strategy where you set aside a specific amount of money regularly for a particular expense or even just to pay off debt. We might have a sinking fund for home repairs, car maintenance, maybe vacations, gifts, even medical expenses. We might even have multiple sinking funds for the different areas in which we expect to have certain expenses. Sinking funds might be time-bound. If it's for maintenance, you might be able to roughly anticipate when you'll need to pay for a maintenance task. If it's for holiday presents, for example, you know that you need the sum of money by roughly the holidays to be able to purchase these gifts and so on. And the key here is to make a regular contribution based on the calculated amount you expect to need in the fund by a certain date. If you have a sinking fund for the winter holidays, aim to reach or be very close to your target budget for gift purchases by November. And this way you can buy holiday gifts with ease and without financial stress. You can contribute to a sinking fund specifically for these purchases. And once you have your amount saved, you can just keep it in that account until you have to use it. I like to set up a sinking fund in a high yield savings account, which I keep with Ally Bank. I keep my general savings account there, but through Ally, there are also the options to create buckets where you can allocate your money accordingly. So I might create buckets for any upcoming expenses I expect to incur, which are my individual sinking funds. It's great because I can auto transfer money into these buckets too. So it also takes the effort out of the act of transferring money from account to account, or like account to bucket. More than just the benefit of having money saved, creating and consistently contributing to a sinking fund encourages financial discipline, which builds financial empowerment. Once we commit to regular contributions for specific savings goals, and we meet these goals over and over again, we prove to ourselves that we are able to save in an organized way. And for me, doing that has really built a ton of confidence. I think this progress can inspire us to save even more diligently and explore additional financial goals to work toward. There's always a sense of achievement and motivation as we see our numbers tick toward our goals. And I know personally for me, this encourages me to save even more and see what else I can strive for. And then on the flip side, when we have this money and we very intentionally refrain from spending it, it's another way to build discipline because we know we're saving it for a specific expense. Knowing that we are saving this money for a specific expense reinforces our commitment to our financial goals. It's taught me the importance of patience and delayed gratification, and I would argue that this is an element of financial self-care as well. Sinking funds have been incredibly helpful for me because they allow me to set aside a specific amount of money for anticipated expenses. When it comes time to spend, I already have the funds allocated for those costs. When we build our sinking fund, it also reduces our financial stress because we are actively planning and saving for known future expenses. So many of these expenses can be anticipated if we only look ahead for the next 6 to 12 months. When it comes time to spend this money, we have a greater peace of mind because the past version of us already looked out for ourselves and we saved up this money. Also, when you pre-save for a sinking fund, you don't have to go into debt for these types of expenses. That also improves our emotional health. Sinking funds are like a financial safety net for specific purposes. I think this really does wonders for providing a sense of security and stability, and in turn, this reduces financial stress. The difference between a savings account and a sinking fund can sometimes be unclear, so let me provide some clarification. After all, in both scenarios, we're still saving, but the way I like to think about it is that a savings account is more for a general purpose. There's no specific goal or timeline, and when I think of a savings account, it's just a place to store extra funds from a paycheck. The funds in there can be used for a variety of purposes or for any expenses that may come up unexpectedly. So I consider a savings account as more of a general financial cushion rather than to target specific expenses that a sinking fund might target. The sinking fund also has more of a time-bound element compared to the savings account. Also, another note is that I generally have one savings account, but I might have multiple sinking funds because I might be saving for multiple events or costs at the same time. That might be a trip, maybe it's for birthday gifts and or appliance replacements. Let's talk about the types of sinking funds I like to create. I generally create sinking funds for medical and travel expenses. Those tend to be the most common regular expenses that aren't included in my monthly living costs. Every year I like to take a trip, and leading up to this trip, I will be saving money in my sinking fund for this trip. That's my travel sinking fund, but even within my travel sinking fund, I have an additional sinking fund for getting scammed or overpaying for something. As much as I try to be good about avoiding scams and traps, I know I might get scammed because I don't always know the norms, and honestly, tourists are just an easy target. I also know that I will have a much more positive travel experience if I have budgeted for these instances. So when or if I get scammed, I learn from it and I consider that sum of money the price for the lesson. And usually I won't get scammed, at least in that way, again, because I've already experienced it, so I know to look out for it in my mind. And if at the end of the trip, I don't use up the money in this scam sinking fund, then that just means I made money. When it comes to medical expenses, I will pay whatever it costs to maintain my health. I see this as an investment in the quality of my life and also my future health. My medical expense sinking fund, which is really my HSA account, is really helpful because sometimes these expenses can be quite steep. So knowing I have all this money that is specifically allocated for those costs doesn't make me feel guilty at all for spending this sum of money. The key to successfully managing a sinking fund is to use it exclusively for its intended purpose. We'll want to avoid spending the money on anything else unless the designated expense is no longer relevant. Regularly contributing to a sinking fund builds confidence and financial empowerment because it takes discipline to actively work toward our goals. The best place to keep our sinking fund is in a high-yield savings account that we regularly contribute to. Then when we see that we can rely on ourselves to meet our goals, we know that we can do anything. Having this safety net also provides stability, which reduces our financial stress. And the key difference between a savings account and a sinking fund is that a sinking fund is created for specific expenses, while a savings account might be more general. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and you might also enjoy this video on the micro habits I incorporate that help me live a better life.